In a historic political earthquake that is rocking South Africa's power corridors, African National Congress ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula petitioned the High Court to have President Cyril Ramaphosa jailed forthwith in connection with a massive corruption scandal that has shaken the presidency to its foundation. The action has rocked the country, sending shockwaves through the ruling party and the wider political class. Veteran observers of South African politics called this the most dramatic confrontation with a sitting president since the end of apartheid, and its echoes are already being felt from Parliament to township streets in a dramatic move characterized by observers as nuclear. Mbalula's lawyers lodged a formal affidavit with the Gauteng High Court charging the president with criminal offences, including mismanagement of finances, abuse of executive authority, and orchestrating a cover-up of illegal activities related to government contracts and foreign bank accounts. The explosive filings claim that Ramaphosa's office was at the nexus of draining millions of rands through a web of shell entities masquerading as legitimate service providers. In accordance with insiders privy to the filing, the evidence provides a picture of widespread corruption going back years and involving not only the president but also his closest inner circle leaders. Talking outside the courthouse in a televised address, clearly shaken, Mbalula took a belligerent tone. The nation is hemorrhaging while the head of state makes a mockery that everything is fine. He told reporters, his voice ringing over the din of journalists and protesters on the courthouse steps. We cannot just sit back and let corruption consume the heart of our democracy. I am urging the judiciary to act firmly. Let the courts imprison Sir Ramaphosa for violating our people's trust. These were his live television words, which immediately took over news headlines and ignited social media with reaction from supporters and detractors alike. The filing allegedly consists of more than 300 pages of evidence, accounting documents tracing suspicious transfers, whistleblower affidavit documenting backroom bargains, and transcripts of private messages said to directly involve the president in a number of procurement fraud schemes. Court officials have received confirmation of the urgent application and are examining it in sealed proceedings to preserve sensitive information. Because of the seriousness of the charges and the potentially volatile nature of the materials at issue, judges on the case have been put under tight security. The police have also beefed up their presence at the courthouse, knowing that emotions are running hot and that demonstrations could run out of control. Political repercussions were instantaneous. Opposition parties such as the Democratic Alliance, DA, and the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, lost no time in capitalizing on the situation. Both parties called for an emergency parliamentary investigation and urged the immediate suspension of presidential powers until the court's ruling. EFF leader Julius Malema took the rhetoric even higher, pronouncing, "This is no longer a political crisis. It is a constitutional crisis." DA spokesperson John Steenhuisen reiterated the concerns, threatening that the stability of the country was at risk and calling on the ANC to own up to the mess within its own ranks. Mola's brazen act of defiance, coming as it did from a high-ranking member of the ANC, has laid bare a dramatic split in the party leadership. Sources say that the ANC's powerful top six leadership team is in shambles. Some top officials are reportedly summoning an emergency national conference in hushed tones to deal with the crisis, fearing that inaction could lead to permanent damage to the party's already delicate cohesion. Others are reportedly angry at Mbalula, alleging that he has aired internal differences in a manner that could lead to the ANC's demise. This internal bickering has only fueled the perception of uncertainty hanging over the nation. Political analyst Demika Lemeni gave a stark view in an interview with SABC News. "This is the beginning of the end," she stated bluntly. Mbalula has drawn a line in the sand, and if the courts decide in his favor, Ramaphosa's presidency is over, and so is the ANC as we know it. Even if the president survives legally, the mere fact that his own Secretary-General has turned against him publicly will be politically devastating. Lemeni's comments reflect a growing consensus among experts that the ANC, long seen as the unassailable force in South African politics, may now be entering its most vulnerable period in decades. The High Court is to give a preliminary ruling within 72 hours on whether to hear the case in public, a move that may fan or momentarily quiet the political storm. A public hearing would make much of the supposed evidence publicly available, a prospect that frightens some in the ANC and thrills opposition leaders who think only openness will clean up the mess and regain public confidence. ANC power brokers, however, are allegedly canvassing the court in private to have the proceedings shut out of the public eye in case the public responded with outrage if the facts were to come out. In the meantime, officials at the union buildings indicate that security around President Ramaphosa has tightened considerably. He has stayed indoors in the presidential residence, restricting his appearances outside and avoiding giving a formal response. Government sources indicate that nervous consultations are happening between the president's closest advisors and lawyers as they prepare a defense for him that may define the future of his political life. One of the White House senior aides who spoke on background said the mood in the building is grim but determined and that the president is deciding whether to issue a public statement or wait for the court's first reaction before going public. Throughout South Africa, the petition has been the talk of newspapers, talk radio shows, and social media platforms. Average citizens long frustrated by corruption scandals, ongoing load shedding, and economic stagnation are feeling anger and guarded hope. Organizers of protests in Johannesburg and Cape Town are organizing demonstrations outside ANC offices and the High Court demanding transparency and quick justice. Civic associations and anti-corruption organizations maintain that this case has the potential to be a litmus test for the vitality of South Africa's democratic institutions. South Africans view it as a time of reckoning that can either purge the political system or push the country into further dysfunction. The world is paying attention. Diplomatic sources suggest that foreign governments and investors are observing the situation for an instability that will influence regional economics and security. South Africa, being the most industrialized economy of the continent and a leader in African Union diplomacy, is widely seen as a bellwether for democratic rule on the continent. If the court proceedings are made public, they are likely to attract international media coverage, possibly reconfiguring South Africa's image in the rest of the world. According to some analysts, even the impression of instability has the potential to affect the rand and repel foreign investment.